So a couple of weeks ago, my friend ended up coming into town, and while she was here, I wanted to show her this game that I found about this time last year. And when I found it, I thoroughly enjoyed the entire experience of the game. It was really fun to play. There were parts that like literally moved me to tears. I played it and its subsequent games. And one of the main things for me is that I really suck when it comes to learning like new game controls and things like that. And it felt very beginner friendly. Since then, I've played it multiple times and have increased difficulty every time. And I'm now currently on the hardest playthrough. But this game is the PS4 version of Spider-Man. She came over and she tried it. She seemed to like it. When she ended up leaving, I decided to continue her save file because it's not like she lives kind of far away. It's not like she's going to come back here and be like, I want to play on the one that I started. While I was going through, there are these like little missions that you have to do where it's like, oh, snap pictures of the city, go find all of these backpacks, beat up all of these people. Anyway, specifically for the backpacks, there's all of these backpacks that are like hidden throughout the city that you have to find. And in them, they have like these little mementos and stuff that Peter has kept, and he'll say something whenever you find them. And I was going through and I found the one for basically these infamous dumplings. So the story goes, Peter was wanting to make MJ dumplings, probably some sort of date night thing or whatever, from scratch. And he writes down the instructions, the ingredients all on this paper. And in the voiceover part, and later on they reference it, he mentions that it didn't go well. Apparently he like burned it really badly to the point where like even neighbors could smell it. He ends up, I guess, folding it up and putting it in a backpack that he left in the city. And I ended up finding that backpack when I was playing through the other day. And I was like, I kind of wonder if I could make that in real life. Is this a legitimate recipe that I could do? It gives specific ingredients, the amounts, it tells you exactly what to do. There's a part where it tells you what temperature it needs to be at. It seemed to be pretty thorough. And there's a little note at the very end that mentions that MJ's stove runs hot. And that's kind of funny because my stove also, I have a burner. I don't know what's been going on with it, but this burner specifically, if I turn it on, it immediately goes to the highest setting. So I'm not going to be using that one, but it does run hot. So I thought that was kind of funny. And I decided to just buy the ingredients and try it. Also, I'm the kind of person that likes to, if I've got like fresh produce or something like that, that needs to be prepared beforehand. I'm a little bit slower at that. So I like to prep that well in advance. Okay, so for the sauce, half a cup of soy sauce. Keep wanting to say rice wine vinegar. It's just rice vinegar. Tablespoon of that. Tablespoon of the chives. Tablespoon of sesame seeds. And then a teaspoon of this paste. And set it aside. I've got to essentially crack and beat the egg before it goes into the pork. So we're going to do that. For the pork mixture, we're going to have to mix the pork, garlic, egg, 2 tablespoons of the chives, soy sauce is over here, sesame oil, and ginger in a large bowl until thoroughly combined. And here's my large bowl. One tablespoon. 2 tablespoons. And that's about a half. Now I just have to mix it all together. I actually was doing something very similar with my mom when she came down to help me out with the surgery and all of that. While she was here, she was like, oh, just so that you have food and you don't have to think about it, is there anything that you want to make? And I asked if we could make gomas, which is like stuffed grape leaves. So it's like hamburger and rice with other seasonings and stuff. And then you basically roll it into grape leaves. And it's kind of nostalgic for me. I've had it since I was a kid, and I really like it. I love my mom's recipe for it. So I asked her if we could make those, and I've literally been having grape leaves every single day, sometimes multiple times a day since then because we made so many. I feel like that's decent. This next part is the part that I'm a little bit intimidated by. I'm going to have to flour the surface and then like start making dumplings. I've got to like spoon about a tablespoon amount of this stuff into the dumpling and then figure out like trial and error crimping the sides to make sure it stays closed. Speaking of flour, because that's kind of a good segue. Ooh, that's plenty. I ended up having to restart Danielle. I think I was using the wrong flour. I thought that I had gotten basically the same thing. Whenever I checked, I realized that it was bleached, which I think was affecting the way that it wasn't doing the rises. It wasn't bubbling or anything like that. So now here's Danielle 2.0. She's a little bit more of a sludge, but this is closer to what I saw last time. And I made a lot of her. Last time it took, 2 days for anything to really start happening. So I'm just going to let her be. But Danielle 3.0 is doing okay so far. So I may have misunderstood the concept of like lightly flouring. Okay, so supposedly this is going to make 50. I hope this there's a lot of wrappers in here, but also I got an extra like pack just in case. Supposedly, I'm supposed to flap that down and then take a teaspoon of this, tablespoon of this, put it in, seal up the edges in a crimpy way, and then I'm going to put them on here. If it is 50, then I might need a second plate, but we will see. Okay, so you will notice that the audio changed and the camera angle changed. This was because I was going to attempt to use B-roll footage for getting little close-ups and whatever, but I'm glad that I did because my camera actually died. So here you'll see me finishing out my first ever dumpling. I'm attempting to figure out the whole crimping situation. I had wet it beforehand, and I would say it turned out pretty decently. But then you'll notice a pretty big time jump where I've got several completed, and that's about to happen in just a second. But ultimately, this took me about an hour-ish to do, a little bit. So far, I have this many. It's a lot. I still have a little bit of meat left, but some things that you kind of generally missed. I didn't know initially that whenever they came, they would have a side that is like smooth and plain, and then another side that's more floured. So initially I was like, I don't know. Do I put it inside the flour side or inside the smooth side? And then on top of that, I was not very sure with like the whole crimping thing. The instructions just say, wet the edge with a little water and crimp together, forming small pleats to seal the dumpling. That is all the instruction it gives. So my first couple of attempts weren't super great. They're at the bottom. I'm not going to pull those out right now. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually finish out the amount of meat that I have, put them all in their own wrappers and everything. And I am going to cook, I don't know, maybe 6 of them. Yeah, we'll see how those go. One other thing, and I'm kind of slightly embarrassed to talk about it because it's like just one of those weird moments where my brain went, huh, that's weird. I've been watching old Unas Honest videos and Spider-Man has been coming out. I was scrolling on Instagram and there was this like video I came across and it was this gymnast and he was just doing whatever, made this weird connection. And it's interesting. So one thing that I know about Ethan Nestor and Tom Holland is that they are both my age and have kind of gymnast backgrounds. I don't know how like strongly and deeply both of them were in it, but I do know that that was a thing. And so in my head, I kind of feel like that meme where it's like I've connected two things and it's like you haven't connected anything. I feel like to a certain extent, there are versions of like Peter Parker that share the demeanor of both of them, if that makes sense. I don't know. And I understand, like Tom Holland went to like school and stuff for acting and like had that sort of background. So it's not anything that would happen here. But what if in like some sort of alternative universe, instead of it being Tom Holland, it was freaking Ethan Nestor? And I shared it with my friends, and they're like, "You are so weird for thinking about that." We're gonna get to the part that might be easier, or at least faster. Basically, I've got to put a little bit of oil into this pan. Hi, friend. So we're gonna have a little chat. Yesterday did not go the way that I was planning on it going. I thought it was gonna be easy, thought it was gonna be a cute little fun video, making a recipe from a game that I like, seeing if it was real. And that's not really what happened. I was really only going to mention the fact that my camera had cut out because my phone had died. There were several things that ended up happening before I kind of shelved this for the night. And it all kind of led me to the conclusion that maybe this wasn't just like a notoriously bad recipe situation for Peter Parker. I think it's also slightly cursed for me too. And there's a couple of reasons why. So first, because the medication that I'm currently on, I am not supposed to be operating heavy machinery. And because of that, I ended up putting in a grocery order to be delivered to me with all of the ingredients for everything that I would need. Except when I got that, I put everything away and I was like, awesome. I will start this right around the time that I start getting hungry. Also, this is a little bit later in the day because my sleep schedule has been messed up, but I get my entire like setup ready, going through the recipe beforehand, and I realized that I'm missing ingredients. There are ingredients that did not make it to my door. So I ended up having to do another order. And when I did the second order, it ended up taking an hour to get all of the rest of the stuff. So there's number one. It's the grocery order. Got messed up. Number two, I ended up having a moment where I was going to give a small disclaimer, and it was about my cats, because my mom had mentioned maybe keep your cats off of your counter while you're shooting these videos. And the thing is, I feel like I can give a pretty solid disclaimer. I do keep my counters clean, and especially before cooking, I want to make sure that there's no hair, there's no dander, nothing on them. I am only preparing food for myself. So even if they happen to be on the counter or whatever, the food is only going in my mouth. Nobody else is ingesting it. I don't have to worry about anybody's dander allergies, food allergies, or anything like that. All of the food that I'm preparing is only for me. Third, my cats have never been food curious, and they've always been really chill with hanging out like on the other side of my island while I'm cooking food. The only thing that I do is that every once in a while I let them sniff the food, because I feel like, oh yeah, as long as they can kind of like smell it, they might not be as interested in it. And that has held true all the way up until yesterday. As I was laying all of the food out, I had put down the like garlic and the ginger and the chives on a board, and it was just in front of the camera. And then all of a sudden, my sweet angel baby, who never does anything wrong, happens to come up, and I was luckily like right in front of her. She decides that today was the day to commit die, not actually, but she decided that she was very interested in the Chinese chives, which, by the way, the other name for it, garlic chives, which are in the onion family. And I don't know if you know this, but garlic, onions, and all of that family are very toxic to cats. She barely got one of like the leaves in her mouth, and then I was like, no, 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 you can't do that. Took it away from her and decided, okay, maybe they need to be put away in my room for today. Fine. So that was number two. Cats suddenly food curious. That was not normal for me, but not enough to stop anything. Next, my phone died. And the thing is that usually before a video, I will make sure that my phone is charged to 100%. And if I had started when I thought that I was going to be starting, then it would have been charged to 100%. But because I had to wait for my grocery order, I was on my phone, I wasn't charging it, and it ended up dying right before I started like actually folding the dumplings up. Next, I've got kind of like a half point. Basically, there was a bit of a discrepancy with the time that I thought this was going to take and the amount of food that this was going to make. So initially, I started this whole process at 8 p.m. I decided to cut for the night at like 12:40 something, almost 1 o'clock in the morning. The recipe called for 50 dumpling wrappers. I did not think that we were going to be using them all. I thought it was just like, okay, get a pack of 50. I made way more than 50 dumplings. In total, I think I made 85. I counted them all out. There's no way that I can eat 85 anytime soon. So I ended up putting them in freezer Ziploc baggies for myself, and they are now stashed in my freezer. So because it took time to get the grocery order, and then it took time to film, and then it took time to wrap all the dumplings and wait for my phone to charge, by the time that I was ready to go ahead and actually start cooking these, I was pretty hangry. But I decided to crack on, and I ended up filming the very end where I was finishing out making the dumplings, and then I was going to go ahead and record myself actually like cooking just a couple for me to eat for the night. I set everything up. I was ready to go. I recorded on the camera. I had this whole section where I was going to talk about, oh my gosh, I ended up with 85. This is crazy. I cooked them. I ended up taking a couple of them off camera, and I was going to just go ahead and try them, come back and give a review. I came back, and when I came back to my camera, I couldn't remember if I had turned off the recording or not, because I really only planned on like tasting a couple, coming back, giving my thoughts. So I went to check, and my phone was not recording anything. And I was like, okay, I just want to make sure, because I don't, now that I'm thinking about it, I don't remember cutting the camera. I scroll to the end of the video that I had made, which seemed very short, and it cut off right before I started cooking. But I had already cooked the food, and I had already tried the food, and just a spoiler alert, it was good. It tasted awesome. I was actually pretty proud of myself, but I was done for the night. I wasn't about to do it again. It was already very, very late. All of this to say, this recipe did not go as was expected. And I mean, honestly, it tasted pretty awesome. The food actually was good, and I will finish out cooking it so that you can see how it's done. It's pretty easy from this point forward, but I feel like for me and Peter Parker as well, it's just a little bit cursed because of all of the things that I went through, and then the burning stuff that he went through. And maybe I'm being a little dramatic, but now that we've gotten that out of the way, it's time to finish this recipe. So first, you're just going to want to turn this to medium high. Basically, it's supposed to be 1 to 2 tablespoons, but I figured out like a cap works, of oil. We're going to dump that in there, and then we're going to wait for that to heat up. Also, Danielle 3.0 is doing amazing. This is where she was, and now she's up here. So safe to say, I figured out what the issue was. Don't use bleached flour. Now that this is pretty hot, but you're going to take 8 to 10 dumplings. You're just going to set them in right in the oil. We're going to let them cook like this for 1 to 2 minutes, and then we're going to flip them, and then another 1 to 2 minutes. Super easy. Hope you can see these. Once it's been going for a little bit, you're going to take a cup of water, and you're just going to, that's very good. And then you let this go for 5 minutes. This is what we have. You can see that. There's a lot of extra liquid in there, and I don't know if that's super necessary, but I have like a spatula with holes, so hopefully it kind of drains some of them because they were a little bit wet last night. I'm going to put some of them on this plate, 4 to have right now. Some of them I'm putting in a container for to have tomorrow. Sauce. And this is ultimately what it looks like. So basically, I mean, I have already had this and I do know it's good. The one thing I will say, possibly the reason I ended up with 85 is because I didn't use enough filling, but also whenever I was trying to wrap them, I feel like there wasn't much space, so maybe I just need to get better at wrapping. But overall, they taste really good. And the one thing I will say, that I mentioned last night that I was worried about was like the time it took to like cook. I wasn't sure if the meat would be like all the way done, but it is. And overall, it tastes good. It tastes really good. If this was supposed to be like just Peter making this for MJ, goodness, is it a labor of love because of the time it takes. Like, I could see it being like a date night, like, oh, we're doing this together kind of activity. But doing it by yourself, it's kind of grueling. But again, they taste awesome. Like, props to the developer that decided to put that recipe in there because it's a real recipe. It works. There is another recipe in that game that I do want to try at some point in time, but I'm not a super breakfasty person, so I will wait for a special day to do that. So yeah, if you've noticed any like recipes that you're curious about or wanted to try from video games, or maybe you have tried them, like I know that they've got some cookbooks out there, I think for Stardew Valley. Let me know in the comments below what they are and if you tried them, how they came out. Even if there's something that like theoretically you could not make using ingredients of Earth, I guess. I'd be curious to know what those are. And then also, this weekend is going to be my first ever concert that I'm going to. I'm very, very excited. And so my next video is probably going to be me prepping my bag and kind of doing a pre-run of my makeup and all of that. So if you're wanting to see that, I recommend, subscribing. And so you will get updated when that comes out. This really did end up turning out